Hello, and welcome back to Minds on Mushrooms. I'm your host, Maggie Kirkwood. Thank you so much for tuning in today. With me, I have Aimee Neumann.
Hey.
Hi, Aimee.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm happy to be here. I'm excited.
I am so excited too. You guys, Aimee has a medical background, and I'm just so thrilled you're here today because you're actually somebody that I have worked with and who has, you've told me firsthand how psilocybin has changed your life.
It has.
And I'm just so excited to kind of dig in. I guess my first question for you is, what was it in your journey or on your path that you decided you might want to look into working with psilocybin?
Sure. So I'm a nurse practitioner. That's my medical background, and I have been for 18 years. And the last 7 years, career-wise, were very challenging for me, and the last 4 years in particular. So I had been aware of psychedelics through the Tim Ferriss podcast, actually. He was my first introduction, especially to ayahuasca. So they've been on my radar, and it's been something that I've been interested in and intrigued in. But it wasn't until January of 2024 when I found out that you were launching your podcast. And so, because, Maggie and I, we know each other, we do in the real world. And so I saw you post about it. I saw that you started talking about how much it had changed your life. And it was really divine timing for me, just like I think everything is, because I was in a very, very dark place, career-wise at that time. I was really struggling. And as soon as I learned about it, it was one of those things that just felt like this whole body yes to me.
Gotcha. I love when you say that, because that's something that I'm trying to pay a lot more attention to, these full body yeses and full body nos.
Yes, yes, exactly. I have now learned that I have ignored those full body nos, and that is what has gotten me into trouble. And that was part of what got me into that really, really dark place. And so as soon as I found out about it, I reached out to you right away, mostly because I was curious. And so we got together and we just chatted, and you shared your experience with me. And I was pretty solid going into that conversation that it was something that I wanted to try. But after hearing about your experience and how powerful it was in your life, I basically said, sign me up.
Love it.
So I started my journey with psilocybin just over a year ago. It was the end of March of 2024. And it's hard to put into words. It's hard to articulate, but now 13 months later, I feel like a completely different person.
Wow.
And I do attribute a lot of that to the psilocybin, for sure.
Amazing. I have so many questions.
Yes.
I wanted to kind of just let the listeners know it was, Aimee is someone who, and I'm so glad and thankful that you were a client. I want to talk a little bit about your sensitivity to psilocybin, because I think that your experience and kind of figuring out that you might have been having too much could have guided you on a completely different microdosing experience. So let's talk a little bit just about kind of the timing and how it took some time to kind of nail your dose.
It did. So you had given me a recommended dose to start with, and I'm a rule follower. So I followed that protocol to a T for the first week. But because of what I do and the kind of medicine that I practice, which I know we're going to talk more about, I'm very in tune with my body physically, energetically, and I was actually having a lot of physical side effects by the end of the first week. And fatigue was really bad. I felt really lethargic. At times, I actually felt really, really irritable. I had a lot of brain fog. I had some constipation, which was not normal for me. And that was the only thing that was different. And so I had reached out to you and we chatted through it a little bit. And so I got a scale and I started to slowly experiment.
A microgram scale.
A microgram scale, yes. And so I just really took some time to play around with it for myself. And you had recommended that I start at about 250 milligrams.
Right.
I ended up figuring out that for my body, I needed to do 50 milligrams.
Wow.
So 1/5 of the dose, really.
Yeah, really.
But that worked much better for me. And so my individual protocol is, and I still do it to this day, is 50 micrograms, 1 day on, and I take 3 days off in between. And that works really well for me.
That.
And the other thing that I want to, explain to the listeners too, is it wasn't actually just the physical symptoms too, it was the emotional stuff.
Right. I remember you were having a lot of emotional.
Yes. It was the combination of the physical and the emotional. So it was almost like it was bringing up too much too fast for me. And you talk on your podcast a lot about the integration part of this work. And I also firmly believe that that's where the magic happens.
Yes.
And it was just way too much for me to process and integrate all at once.
And I just love you sharing this because I think it's absolutely about refining and honing in on the dose that's for you. And everybody is so different.
Yes.
And we all metabolize differently.
Yes.
And also just having the acknowledgement like, hey, Maggie, this is a little too much for me. But I love how, you were able to kind of just continue the path for what was comfortable for you, because so much about this is self-discovery and what's feeling good and not. But we never know what to expect with the medicine.
Correct. And I didn't want to just stop. I knew that wasn't the right solution.
Absolutely. Yes.
I just had to really explore it for myself. Now, my fiance, he uses it as well, and he has no issues with that dose, with the 250. So
yeah, it's so interesting. Yeah. And I'm glad that you were my first client that let me know that, it's really about starting low and going slow.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
I would love to talk about just some of your background and what you do now as a functional medicine practitioner, but you've got kind of a deep healing journey story. And I kind of just want to talk about what led you to practice what you're practicing today and how that kind of weaves into your whole, I feel like you're somebody who really embodies like this aligned lifestyle.
Yes.
So let's just kind of start with some of your background. And, and yes.
So like I mentioned before, I'm a nurse practitioner. I've been practicing for 18 years. I'm very conventionally trained. So my primary certification is in women's health. So I practiced OBGYN for 14 years. But when I was 28, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. And so that was, a major turning point in my life. And in the beginning, I really stepped back and started to look at my physical health. So I made a lot of diet changes. I started to get into supplements more, exploring, toxins that I was exposed to, things like that. And it wasn't until the last, 5-6 years or so that I started to explore more of the emotional side of things. That is a regret of mine. I wish I would have started to figure that out a little bit sooner, but we all come to things in the time when we are meant to find them, right? But after my diagnosis, I still continued to practice traditional medicine, but because I was starting to learn about all of these things and make some changes within myself, I just started to talk about those things with my patients. Like, hey, instead of this prescription, or in addition to this prescription, maybe we can change up some things with your diet, or maybe we can add like a new multivitamin or something like that. And I started to see some shifts with my patients too. And so the more I started to go down those rabbit holes, the more I was drawn towards functional medicine, and so decided to become certified in that as well. So in 2021, I added that certification. And actually since in 2021, I decided to leave conventional medicine. and start to practice exclusively functional medicine. And that has even really shifted over the last 4 years as well. So now I'm at the place where I run my own virtual clinic. It's called Aligned Integrative Medicine.
Yes.
And I chose that name very strategically because I do feel like it's a perfect fit for me. So mostly I help actually perimenopausal and menopausal women with their hormone transition, but I work a lot with, gut health and thyroid. Autoimmunity is a big thing that I see a lot in my patients. And so the more I have done the work on my emotional health and seen the physical changes that has brought, the more I have started to explore those things with my patients as well. And I really am truly convinced now more than ever that for people who really struggle with chronic illness, especially, the physical side matters, the diet matters, the supplement matters, but the emotional, spiritual, mental piece of it is actually really, really quite huge for a lot of these patients.
So is it safe to say that people who are experiencing this chronic pain, it is stored emotions?
It absolutely can be. And it can be both. There can be physical issues, right?
Yeah.
People can have something like Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, which tends to cause a lot of pain. They can have autoimmune issues, which tend to cause a lot of pain. And what I always tell my patients is, I believe you. Like, your pain is real. Your symptoms are very real. And we have to explore some of the physical causes, but I want you to be open to the fact that there can be emotional causes for your physical symptoms.
I see. I love it.
Yeah.
So is this kind of another way that you could see psilocybin helping people to just access some of this stuff?
Yes. So a big thing that I have seen with some of my patients, especially the ones who do struggle with some chronic illnesses, and this is sometimes really challenging for patients to hear, but a lot of them are stuck in a victim mindset. A lot of them have a history of trauma, and that's very well documented in the medical literature. There's this thing called the ACE score, or the Adverse Childhood Events score. So the higher your score for history of childhood trauma, the more we know you're at higher risk for things like cancer and complex physical conditions and illnesses, right?
Yes. Okay.
And so that is something that patients with those chronic conditions do need to look at. Again, they need to explore the physical, the diet, all of that stuff, but they need to look at that past trauma, right? Because if we're constantly stuck in this fight or flight mode, if we're constantly stuck in this victim mentality, this everything happens to me, it's going to be so much harder for the body to heal.
Right.
So one of the things that I think my patients like about me is I'm very data driven. I like the science behind everything, but I also have this strong woo side to me, if you will, this spirituality side. And from what I call an energetic perspective, if you are remaining stuck in that victim mentality, the universe, God, source, whatever you call your higher power, is going to keep you there.
Okay.
Right?
Yes.
And so a lot of it is about shifting our mindset and learning how to create new neural pathways in our brain. And that's where I really see the psilocybin coming in, because from my own research on psilocybin, what it can really help with is creating those new neural pathways.
Well, we know it disrupts them too.
Yes.
So just through my entire journey through psychedelics and healing, I'm really just starting to be more cognizant of the idea, like, our thoughts really do matter and our feelings do too. And so when people are coming to you who are kind of like set in these negative thought patterns, I know we feel that psychedelics can help, but are what are some of your other solutions to start working on like depleting this negative chatter? Or does mindfulness practices play into it?
It can, for sure. I think mindfulness, meditation, a regular meditation practice, because we have to start to learn how to quiet the mind. And one of the big things that I'm passionate about is, and what I think that psilocybin has helped me with significantly, is the awareness. Because I think a lot of us live our lives on autopilot. And we say things, we do things, we're in relationships, we're in jobs, and we don't have the awareness of what's going on. And we don't always see things. We see things through our lens, and that lens is clouded by our past traumas, our past experiences. We can even start to dive into the whole subconscious world, which I think is actually really important too, because, and this is all neuroscience, it really is, but from the ages of 0 to 7, that's when all of these pathways are forming in our brain. And those mental pathways, it's like sand moving through water. It's very easy to create those pathways when we're young. And that's why we know, you know, if you're trying to teach a child another language, you should do it when they're young. Adults have a much harder time learning things, right? And so if we can start to understand that there's so much running our programming that we don't even realize, it's all below the surface, right? Our conscious mind is the tip of the iceberg. It's not the tip of the iceberg that sunk the Titanic, right? It was everything below the surface. And so that to me is the core, is starting to learn how to unlock everything in our subconscious. And you have to be able to quiet the mind in order to do that. And so I think meditation is a really great way to start to explore that. I usually recommend, I want my patients, you know, working with a therapist, especially if they do have a past history of trauma, because obviously there's a lot there, very deep, and you want to be very careful with things like that, right? So if there's a history of trauma, I'm always recommending that they work with some sort of therapist. But other modalities like energy work, I'm a Reiki master myself. I don't offer it for my patients, but I do recommend Reiki just to sort of help to clear out some things energetically as well. I think journaling can be very helpful. But for me, I had been doing work like that for about 5 years, and I had success with it, and I had seen some improvements. But when the psilocybin came in for me personally, it took everything to the next level.
Love it.
And I have described it to friends as, I think we all know when we have shit, right? Can I swear on the podcast?
Yeah.
Okay.
You can swear on this.
So we all know we have shit, right? And we all kind of know to some degree what our shit is. And I know what some of my shit is, but it's like I was trying to work on my shit, but the water that I was trying to see it through was very muddy and cloudy. And when the psilocybin came in for me, it's like it cleared up the water so that I could see my shit more clearly. And sometimes it felt like the psilocybin was pulling that shit up out of the water and throwing it directly in my face and saying, this is what you need to work on if you want to continue to grow and heal. And so if you don't even have the awareness of what you're doing, of what's happening with your thought patterns, you have no hope of changing them.
Well, I love to say that psilocybin illuminates within us what needs to be worked on, or what we might need to acknowledge. But it's just this gentle way, or can be, to illuminate some of this stuff. Because as you said, you know, typically we're in autopilot, and, you know, so many things happen and shove it down. And so it's been, well, for me, I could go on and on, but it's just a constant plant teacher. And you had told me that you felt that psilocybin was a great tool for manifesting.
I do.
I would love to get a little woo and kind of talk about that. And any ritual you might have, or when you were, I'd like to just hear more about you taking your mushrooms.
So one of the things that you taught me that still really sticks with me to this day is that your intention is very important. And I carry that with me now throughout every aspect of my life. But every time I use mushrooms for my microdosing, and especially for my macrodosing, like a larger dose, I set a clear intention. And that intention is very different every time, depending on what I need for that day or for that season in my life. So I start with always setting the clear intention, but that was really one of the reasons why I started using the psilocybin, was because I knew that to get to where I really wanted to be, and for the next chapter of my life, and to get out of all of that darkness, the there were things within me that I needed to see and understand and heal and work through in order to get to that next level.
Okay.
So I describe manifestation to people as, I think everyone's familiar with The Secret, right?
Yes.
The law of attraction. You just have to be on the same vibrational level as something, or you just have to like think happy thoughts, right? Or just think about $1 million and you'll have $1 million.
I'm going to get that parking spot.
Exactly. And sometimes it might work, but most of the time, especially for bigger things in our life, it doesn't really work, right? Yeah. We could all think about $1 million. Very few of us actually have $1 million, right? So I've been studying manifestation for years and I'm very passionate about it. And so what I really believe is you have to do more than just think about it, right? And so whatever it is, you ask your higher power for X, it's probably not just going to float X down on a magical cloud and hand it to you, right? If you ask the universe for a cake, it's not going to give you the cake. It's going to give you the flour and the eggs and the butter and the sugar. And it's your job to figure out how to put them all together.
Yes.
To make the cake, right?
Yes.
So I really started to learn that everything happens for you and not to you. And the things that seem really negative at the time, or the things that really piss you off and the things that really trigger you, they are actually the things that you need. They wouldn't be coming to you if you didn't need them to grow and to heal. So most of us, what do? We just say, God, that really fucking pissed me off, right? I'm so mad at that person. I'm so mad about the situation. And we just go on about our day being mad and angry all the time, instead of stopping to think, why am I so upset about this? What is this showing me about myself that I need to work on and heal? How is this testing me, right? And so that's what I started to use the mushrooms for, is I started to help me see what I need to see to move past this situation, or to navigate this situation. Help me understand what I need to understand about myself. It wasn't help me get to a better place, help me bring in more money, help me do this. I was very intentional with help me figure out what it is within me that I need to explore and look at.
I love that. And so beautifully stated.
Thank you.
I think that for me, especially with microdosing, because I am accustomed to kind of doing the macro doses. But when I keep up my microdosing practice and involve mindfulness or meditation, it really does, emotions do come.
Yes.
I've been telling I cry daily, usually in the morning, not necessarily due to a microdose, but I'm just allowing myself, or trying to sit with what comes up. And if I need to shed some tears, it always ends happy. It always feels good. But I think this is something that I would just, back in the day, like, come down on myself. Like, what's going on with me, but I think it's just, with microdosing, you do take your off days and whatnot, but it's still kind of working through you.
100%.
And there's, it's just kind of lingering and holding you.
That's what I want to address too, because I can have some pretty cool experiences on the days when I microdose. But for me, it's almost like the day after I microdose. That's when the real magic happens.
Thank you. Yes. I think that so many people, when they're microdosing, they'll say, Maggie, I don't feel anything. Well, good, because it's supposed to be, we keep saying subperceptual and no intoxication.
Correct.
But that's not the point.
Correct.
And it's so, my favorite protocol, I've been doing 2 days on, 2 days off.
Sure.
And I really do look at the 2 days off, like this is my integration window.
Yes. Not
just for those 2 days on, but it's just, in my mind, it's a really clean kind of protocol to stick to. And, but there's so many, and that's a whole nother podcast.
Yeah. Well, like we were talking about before, you have to find what works best for you.
Yes.
As absolutely. An individual.
I know, everybody's so different.
Yes.
And that reminds me, so your fiance, are you open to talking about, I love anytime couples, are there any stories to share?
Yes.
Better communication,
yes. Yes. I mean, I feel like psilocybin is responsible for I don't want to say saving our relationship, but truly enhancing our relationship. Now, what I will say is there were some dark periods that we have both gone through.
Yes.
Because of all of the emotional shit that comes up.
But also tough, but good.
Tough, but good.
Mm-hmm.
For me personally, I realized within the first few weeks of starting that, holy shit, I am reliving my entire childhood dynamic with this one human being.
Mm.
There are parts of him that are very much like my dad.
Mm-hmm.
There are parts of him that are very much like my mom. And there are parts of him that are very much like my brother.
Oh,
holy shit.
wow.
Okay, well, those are things that I need to start to explore
yes.
and integrate now,
Mm-hmm.
right? And over the past 13 months, we have both up-leveled in our own self-awareness so that our conflict resolution is better than it's ever been. Now, we are not without conflict.
Right.
No humans ever will be. And we still sometimes get like real angry and we still fall back into old habits with each other, right?
Mm-hmm.
But after the fact, we can have the most mind-blowing, self-aware conversations. One of the most beautiful moments that we had was, I have this really bad habit of bringing things up to him at not appropriate times, right? Like he's just walked in the door from work and like, let me unload why I'm so mad at you right now. And he's just like, whoa. And so I said one night, do you have the space? Can I talk with you about something? Is now a good time? And he appreciated that. And he was able to say yes. And his first question was, is it about us? And I actually said, no, it's not. And he said, what part of me are you afraid is going to come out? Because I can tell that you're hesitant about this conversation.
Yeah.
And I was able to stop and go, whoa, okay, I know exactly what part of you is going to come out with this conversation. And that's a part that triggers me, a part of me. And he said, I can't promise that that part of me won't come out. But if I know in advance, I can try to tamp that part down.
Yeah.
And he was able to. And what normally would have blown up into this huge issue,
right?
Actually, we were able to have a really, really lovely, healthy conversation about it. Yeah.
And that does sound like a combination of, we were touching on parts work,
yes,
right? Which you had told me that you have had a little experience working with recently.
Yes.
I think that in the psychedelic space, it's actually, I need to learn way more, but it's considered this model that can be just like excellent in conjunction with integration. And I did experience a session when I was in Costa Rica, and it happened post ceremony. And I thought it was a beautiful way to just kind of remember what had happened in ceremony, because so much of it lives in our heads. Like there's things that you feel like you learned, but you can't possibly. It's more like emotions for me. Like I just have this sense or this knowing about something. But with parts work, you're a fan of it, right?
I'm a huge fan. So what we're referring to is a type of therapy called internal family systems, or IFS. And so I'm not going to be able to explain it as well as a true IFS therapist would, but the basic gist of it is that we have this core, this centered self is what we call it. And then anything that's not our centered self are all of these parts. So like if you're angry, you have a part that is angry, right? If you're pissed off, however you're feeling, it's usually a part of you. And so I personally have my own IFS therapist, and it's been tremendously helpful for me. And so what we work on is, first of all, learning how to recognize those parts of ourselves and learning how to distinguish between your core sort of centered self and all of these parts. And a lot of us, this was one of my big issues, is I tended to shame those parts. I tended to say, you're bad. I want you to go away. I don't like you. I need to fix you, right? Like you're wrecking things for me. Stop ruining this for me. And instead, through therapy, I have been able to shift towards identifying the part first and saying, hello, part. I see you. what are you trying to tell me? And it's usually fear.
Okay.
There's usually fear behind the parts. They're afraid of something. So they're, causing us to think certain thought patterns or do certain behaviors to try to protect us. So the man who sort of kind of discovered IFS, his name is Richard Schwartz. He wrote a book called No Bad Parts. All of our parts are trying to protect us. I see. And so it's really starting to understand and get to know those parts better and say, yeah, your fear is really valid. I understand why you're afraid. But then starting to step back, and this is another big thing that psilocybin has helped me with, is fear is actually an illusion. So learning that those parts don't have to be so afraid anymore. Right. But it takes a lot of time to work with those parts and understand them. But so that's been a really big part of my journey as well.
Wow. So just kind of going back to your practice and working with folks, you said you'd work with a lot with perimenopause. I do, perimenopause and menopause. I'm just curious. I think there are some studies out there talking about psilocybin for perimenopause. Oh, interesting. Yeah. I would want to learn. Yeah, maybe we can chat about that. Yes. But you hadn't heard, or I've not heard about that, but I could see it. I really see perimenopause as this time in our lives, because most of us are going to hit it when we're in our 40s, right? And we have, maybe some aging parents and kids and careers. And so it's a very busy, very stressful time in our lives. And then you throw these hormone changes on top of it. And it's just a really fantastic time for us to reevaluate our lives, right? And to start to look at what is serving me and what is not serving me. And I think a lot of us tend to start to put up with less bullshit in our lives. Yes. And so I think perimenopause, our bodies are fundamentally changing. Right. When we go through perimenopause. And it's like nobody's talking about it, right? We're finally starting to. The conversation is becoming more mainstream, which is really nice. Thank goodness. Thank goodness. It's about time. But so I help in my professional career with the actual hormone piece of it, right? And so, either using hormone replacement therapy or using diet and lifestyle and supplements to help support what's going on with our hormones, because it's such a tumultuous time for women. But I do really like to talk to my women about, you do need to be exploring things like, am I in the right relationship? Is this relationship serving me? Is this career, is this job serving me? This is really the time to start to empower yourself to really make some big changes if things aren't working for you in your life. Because I can truly tell you, and really what the psilocybin has helped me do is it has helped me to remove the things in my life that are no longer serving me and to gravitate more towards the things that are truly in alignment for me. And the more I do that, the better my life gets, the better my physical health has gotten. And it's one of the reasons why I do truly feel like a completely different person in the last 13 months. I love that. I think that psilocybin is such a great way to unselfishly put yourself first, like time and time and time again, and just be more cognizant of our energy and how we're spending it and not spending it. I'm so guilty of, probably still am, just people pleasing. And I think psilocybin really helps to put the brakes on and just say, you first. And so I really wanted to share something today, and it's quite vulnerable, and there might be people out there who laugh at me for it, but I do really want to share it, because one of my big struggles in life and one of the big lessons that I think I'm on this earth to learn is that I am lovable and worthy of love. Oh. And this is why my life has changed so dramatically, is because I can finally feel that for myself. And this is going to sound so stupid, but I have been with my partner for 10 years. Yeah. We are engaged now, finally, for the past few months, but I'm not kidding you, Maggie. 2 weeks ago, he finally said something to me that just when somebody says something and it finally clicks in your brain, I was able to say to him, oh, I get it now. You love me. Oh, wow. You love me. Oh. And I can only see that now
because I finally love myself.
Wow, honey, that is amazing.
It really is. And when I can look back on all the like major conflicts we've had in our relationship, it's been because on a deep core level, I'm believing that he doesn't actually love me.
Yeah.
And everything that he does, I'm seeing through the lens of, you're doing that because you don't love me. If you loved me, you wouldn't do that. And that has not been the case at all.
No.
And now I can see that in hindsight. And I don't think I would have gotten here. I certainly wouldn't have gotten here this quickly without the psilocybin.
Oh,
truly.
That is just magical. And I mean, I think at the heart, again, of the medicine, it really is so about self-love and self-worth. And like you were just saying, prioritizing. Because we need to be the best of us. I always just say it's like on the airplane when those oxygen masks drops, you have to take yourself in order to serve the others. But there's like one thing that like I just want people to understand. I'm so happy that you're sharing, like, just the medicine can help you love yourself more. That's a pretty massive deal.
And then
for those of us that struggle in that capacity,
it's huge, I think, for a lot of us. And I will actually, tie it back to what we were talking about earlier from a manifestation point or standpoint. Everyone's heard of affirmations, right? I'm good enough. I'm smart. You can say affirmations all day long, but if you don't truly believe them, they're not going to matter. Right. You can only fake it so much. And so why my life is just evolving into such a beautiful thing for me is because I finally believe that I'm worthy of it.
No, I can relate. I think that I was in a marriage for many, many years. And so all of this just change, but also being allowed to self-discover. Like, I didn't even know that we could do these these things. And I think it's our birthright. And I think that through healing, you give yourself grace. And at some point, the sadness and the troubles are transmuted into light and right. And there's things happen for us, and
everything happens for us and not to us.
So it is, I think it's so easy for some people to get caught up in negativity. And I'm trying myself just to stop telling my past story of I was addicted to alcohol. And at this point it is now, the positive, and we know that's what got me here. This is just for me an everyday conversation, but it's like, I really truly believe that with psilocybin, it just helps you get that different perspective. That you are not privy to sometimes on your own.
100%. And really, I think we all hear some of these things, especially in the manifestation world. We hear these things. And what I have found is the psilocybin has helped me to sort of embody them and understand them on a deeper level. I can understand the words that you're saying, but now I'm starting to actually feel what that feels like, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that integration and embodiment would be a great, I think it truly is that. And when we talk about like some of, people are very concerned of integration for people who have like a trip where it might appear that they were struggling because there was a lot of release or cathartic release, and absolutely. But then there's the other side where you can have these experiences or acknowledgements or amazing, beautiful things that you don't want to just shove aside either. And really just truly like taking that and trying to embody it the best you can. But what do they say? It's about being, not doing.
Yes. And you really, this is so true, but if you want your world to change, you have to change how you see your world. And that's what's really been happening for me over the last, 6 months in particular. I'm looking at situations from such a different lens than I used to, from such a healthier lens than I ever used to.
I think it's funny because you're quick to say, like, this is going to sound so silly or stupid, because it really is just basic, like, things that we can be a little bit redundant, but I think like the word embodiment means something to me completely different today than it did 2 years ago. And I think when it comes to this medicine, it's really about three things. It's trusting the medicine,
Yes.
trusting yourself, and then the process.
Yes.
Because when we're working with the medicine, it's the answers aren't there immediately.
Correct.
But it's all of the things in conjunction with medicine, synchronicities,
yes.
feelings,
yes.
all of these, so it's so interwoven. And so
one of the cool stories I like to tell sometimes is, I think money's a big issue for a lot of us,
yes.
right? And financial blocks and things like that. There's so much psychology around money. And one of the intentions I set one day was, help me see what I need to understand about money. And again, more money just didn't come to me, right?
Help me see what I need to understand about money.
Okay. Yeah, but then later that day, I got a download about a book that I had listened to once before, and I found it very helpful. And I just had this thought. No, it
Letting Go?
No, it wasn't.
Oh, okay.
It wasn't. It was a different one, but it was actually called Existential Kink, which I don't think I've told you about, but that is a fantastic book for anyone out there, especially to learn about like the shadow side of ourselves. So I had listened to it once before, found it helpful, but I got the download or the ping to listen to that book again. And I very rarely will read a book twice. And so I thought, well, I'm going to go with it. And so I re-listened to it, and I picked up on things that I had sort of missed the first time through. And there was one of my answers. Okay. That I had asked the mushrooms for. Oh, right.
Tell me what I need to know about.
Yes. And so then it started to I started to understand even more about my victim mentality, right? And how that was playing a role in my financial situation. And so that I just thought was a very, very cool example of it's not going to come how you think it's going to come. You have to ask for what you want and then trust that it's going to come in the form that you need it. Yes. Not necessarily the form that you want it.
I love that. Yes. Yeah. And makes sense, right? Yeah. You can't be getting things on
again, it's not going to give you the cake. You have to look for the flour, the sugar, the eggs, and the butter. Yes.
I was wondering, so I know you've microdosed and then you've done some macro experience. Is there any story or anything you'd like to share?
So I've done 3 macro. As a person who tends to like to be very regimented and controlled and type A, I have really learned that I have to just go with my intuition, and I only do a macro dose when I'm truly feeling called to it. Right?
About that.
All 3 experiences have been vastly different. The first one was like a future version of myself was coming back and sort of slapping me and being very aggressive and yelling at me and saying, wow, this is the shit that you need to hear right now, girl. And if you don't start to look at some of these things, you're going to be crying on a corner or crying in the corner for the rest of your life, right? That's kind of what came to me. So that took a while to sort of integrate. The second one was a much more pleasant experience. Just very heart-opening, lovely. The main theme for me was, this was the old you, and you need to start to let her go, and you can grieve her, but you are going to step into this future version of yourself, and you're ready for that now. And then the third one was more recently, and it was after I experienced the death of a close friend, and had to put my dog down within a week of each other. Now, ironically, I was already planning to do this journey.
Right now, ironically.
Yeah. So ironically, I was already planning to do this journey, and it just happened to come at this time. And nothing really happened other than there was a lot of tears, just a lot of crying. I think there was just a lot of grief. But I got no clear message, nothing like the first 2, but I just ran with it. But with that one, the next day and for 2 weeks after, I felt a massive shift. Wow. Massive shift in in who I was, how I was showing up in the world, the thoughts that I was having. They were healthier than they've ever been. And I'm still continuing to see the effects of that a month later.
I love that, because oftentimes there are no crystal clear answers.
No.
And again, I think it's about acknowledging feelings, even though you might not know how to express whatever the feeling is. But for me, when I have kind of profound experiences, it's not like I've solved all the answers, but it's just this existence or this presence of something. And I think it's like working with that, or I love just to hear about other people's journeys. And it's been such a pleasure having you. I want you to let us know if we want to find out more about you and your practice. And we will have links in the episode description, but feel free to say the name of your practice.
So my practice is Aligned Integrative Medicine. I'm all virtual. I can see patients in Minnesota, Wisconsin, Iowa, and Florida as of right now. I'm working on Arizona next.
Wow. Okay. Cool.
And then eventually Colorado is my next goal. But my website is just my full name, AimeeNeumann.com. Aimee is spelled differently, AIMEE, but go to the show notes for the link.
We'll have links.
Yes.
Is there anything else? I was going to say, I love to ask any sort of journeys or plant medicine world that you're looking to explore.
Yes, I do plan to continue with the psilocybin. I'm very drawn to ayahuasca. I trust that when I'm ready for it, I will feel that and I will know. I don't feel like it's the right time for me yet. What's been coming up for me more recently is actually bufo. So that's the thing that I'm looking to explore next.
And that's a big one. And I can't wait to hear how and when you explore. But I think it's all just exciting. I too feel the same way. I need to feel called or very serious. With these, I like to say there's kind of like a Christmas tree of medicines, but you've got your ayahuasca and your bufo up there and ibogaine, and then mushrooms are, grandmother ayahuasca are like the children. So I appreciated when you were saying that you were asking questions. That is something that I've learned too, is just to ask mushrooms questions because they like to play. And they like to take you places or show you things that you're asking. So well, this has been so wonderful.
Yes, and thank you so much for having me. This has been a long time in the making.
It really has.
We've been talking about this for a long time.
I'm so excited just for people to hear about your experience, because I think it's been, quite a bit in a year. And,
it has.
And so much has happened for you work-wise, and relationships. So just really an all-around beautiful story.
Thank you. Thank you for allowing me to share it.
Yes. Thank you, Aimee. And thank you so much for tuning in. Bye, guys. Bye.
For more information, please visit mindsonmushrooms.com. Thank you for joining the journey.